Hi, it's me, Maxi Glamour, and I'm here with Qu'art Talks. And today we are with Tonina. We're going to talk about her amazing career in St. Louis and being an Afro-Sicilian and using art as a platform for social change. Hey, Tonina.
Hello, Maxi. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. You look fabulous.
Girl, thank you. I'm just in my Selena shirt. RIP to the Queen.
We love Selena. We love her.
We stand.
And we love you. Like, you really,
Oh,
have just blown up and been this amazing representation of Black beauty and joy and music in St. Louis. And I'm such a huge fan, so it's great to have you. So it's just so cool seeing how you use your platform for change. Doing that rally for Bernie Sanders, like being there, can you just kind of tell me what that was like? Did his team hit you up and say, hey, Tonina, we love your music and we want you to be a part?
yeah, it was crazy. I got the email and I was gagged because it said Bernie will be in St. Louis on this date and he is a fan of your music. Like it said, Bernie is a fan of your music. And I'm like, oh, Bernard. And so that really was super special. And that was the moment like where I really felt like, you know, we have this, like we, the people, we are in power. Like we are the consumers, we are the voices. Like we got this. Cori Bush was there, an icon. And it was so great to use my music to, you know, rally people together and, you know, pump up the crowd and stuff. So it was so special. And it was great seeing you there too. And just like so many important people from St. Got you know, it was just a super exciting feeling. And that was, I think the day before St. Louis went on lockdown or something like that. So we got it in last minute.
Yeah, that was, that was earlier this year. It's really been so crazy. And a lot of people don't really see St. Louis as something that's progressive or something that's, pushing the movement. And there are so many people that are just really focused on changing the city because we need it.
It's a lot of young people too. It's a lot of young people. It's a lot of marginalized groups. It's people like yourself who are in the LGBTQIA communities. It's a lot of women of color. Cori Bush, just a woman who's a nurse, who has been on the front lines, who was marching in Ferguson. You know, it's these so many great creatives as well, like Damon Davis. You know, so it's super inspiring, and it's really a grassroots city. You know, like we're out here on these streets. We know everybody in the arts community, no matter who you are, and I think there's a real feeling of brotherhood, of sisterhood, of family. It's and we want to see each other succeed. So I think that's why in St. Louis you'll meet so many activists and people who are on the ground.
Sometimes it feels like half of the city is on the ground. Like when you go to like a protest, you're like, I know you. Oh, I know you. I know you.
Yes.
Even though it can be insular, it's kind of comforting,
Yeah, for sure. And there's always room for more. And this is I think this summer, like in June, after the murder of George Floyd, was the first protest I had been to where I saw just as many white people as I did Black people. And that made me so hopeful and excited for the future, like my niece and nephew's future.
Yeah, I really feel like there's just this amazing change going through our city that protest is really like changing it. With Lyda Cruzan saying, "Oh, I'm not going to run for office again," to the Ferguson report coming out and all these things. It's really like, it's a city of change. And a lot of times music reflects that. Can you kind of talk about like how your music kind of really just expresses your experiences and the way that you navigate the world as an Afro-Sicilian?
Yeah, so I'm super fortunate to have two way older parents for my age. So I'm 25 and my father would be 76 and my mom is 69. So, I'm their youngest. They've been around the block and back. My father was in Vietnam, and my father is Black, and he fought in Vietnam. And when he came back from Vietnam, completely like set to the side. There's no parade for the Black soldiers, for the Black, Indigenous, or Latin soldiers or Asian. And my mom was, just this like white girl who really empathized with Black Americans and their struggle. And her being a super Catholic, was, put her faith into helping people. So that's why she became a nurse. And she really did her best to help marginalized communities. And I say all that because I was raised with very diverse music. My dad being in the military and traveling around the world, bringing back, CDs and tapes from his travels. And then my mom, loving classical and romantic era music and Baroque, and then also loving like classic rock and stuff. But my parents had a common love for Motown. And so while Motown is all this cheery, ass music, and you hear Smokey hitting them notes and Marvin singing his heart out, while they do sound happy, they're talking about some real ish. I love the juxtaposition of them sounding like happy, strong, Black people. But they're talking about their communities. They're talking about the injustices. They're talking about the hood. They're talking about their living conditions. They're talking about an unnecessary war that they have to fight, whereas people like Donald can pay their way out of it. So all that to say is I have always been surrounded by music that means something. And that really shaped me. And I always wanted to create music that someone else could identify with, or art reflects the times. So write about my own experiences and then our own experiences as a collective. So my parents really inspired my choice to pursue music, and I'm grateful to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think parents really can like make or break a person's like artistic career if they like validate your interests and kind of like feed.
They really can. They really can.
All you parents out there, make sure you pay attention to what your kid likes.
Yeah, and just support them in that. It's so strong. Your imagination should never die. When we have like our imaginary friends when we're little, that aren't always imaginary. That's a spirit. That's a part of you potentially. Like those are our friends. Like we need to nurture that. That is what makes us us. We can't suppress that. So
that was just a cute psychosis.
Right? My friend is still with me.
Yeah.
No, but yeah.
Listen to the way that you sing, the way that you make music, it's very, very soothing to the soul, and it has, so many different types of elements fused into it. Like I hear jazz, and I hear the blues, and I hear like the rock and roll. Like I see you with that 5-string bass. You gotta get really
yes.
Fine it. How would you classify your music in the record store?
That's a good question. The record store. I guess if there's a section for like alternative R&B potentially, I usually like to ask my fans this question. Like, what do y'all classify me as in your mind? But yeah, I used to say folk just because of like folk means of the people, literally. So like technically anybody could be folk. And but like just the beat or whatever is underneath is the classifier in that. Um, so I don't know. I would say alternative R&B for now, but that could change like in a year or something.
Alternative R&B. I like that. I like that. That's something that's, I think as much as like the listeners can define your music, I think it's equally important for us to define like what it is that it is. Because
of course,
if you look at like Britney Spears music and she says, "Oh, I'm heavy metal," it's like, oh,
right, no, girl.
Wait a minute, that doesn't line up. Or like, oh, this is an interesting take on heavy metal. Like maybe this is like, if someone wanted to be a musician, or someone wanted to take their music to the level, and there's always this thing of like, is this good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Do I like this? Will people like this? As a musician myself, I'm always just like, oh my God, I like it, but will they like it? Is this like, are my references too obscure? How do you go through that battle as a musician to connect your thoughts with your audiences?
Yeah, I would say that's completely like regular for you to feel that way and for anybody to feel that way starting out. It's really about finding your inner motivator. So think about why you create, why you have the feeling to create. We are just like with our imaginary friends, we repress a lot of our artistry from a young age because we're taught that that is not what makes you money in our American capitalist, society. So I would say do it for you first and then think about who's going to listen to it. Create your songs that you like to listen to and you like to hear yourself sing or play, whatever you do, because this is your therapy and this is your practice. This is not for anybody else. And if you feel like this is truly for you and this is your calling and you have to create this, which I feel like a lot of artists do need to create it to survive and to just live their life, then your listeners, your followers, your collaborators, they will fall in line, but it is practice, not only physical practice on your instrument or your computer, whatever you do, it is internal. It is unique self-practice as well.
You touched on something that's just like so real to me, that like the improving your career by moving to like New York, LA, or Rio, or another city that has the connections that you need. And as an international drag queen, like I've always wanted to do that, and I'm just always like, I care about my community, but at the same time, like I care about myself.
Absolutely. But you are showing that you care for your community by going out. You are showing that, you're representing where you come from, and you're representing to little kids that, yeah, I can be from St. Louis and I can be a queen and I can go to Rio or Argentina or Mali and, we're the stage out, it's inspiring. And I used to have that guilt as well about like, what if I leave? Like, I don't want St. Louis to feel like I'm forgetting about them. But no, you are a product of where you came from, and you are the inspiration of showing someone who doesn't want to live here no more, or just like can't because maybe some emotional distress or whatever. They can't be here no more, but you are the inspiration for real.
Yeah, like I feel that guilt all the time. Like, if I'm in LA, I'm like, damn, I'm just gonna extend this trip for another 2 weeks. Just, kind of like just like try to get away, because I think one thing about St. Louis that it's a double-edged sword being here. Sometimes it's so insular and like self-replicating that progress takes exponentially longer to happen here, as opposed to like LA or New York. Like there's some crusty ass bitches here that are like, it's still 1974.
Girl, literally. And it's like, you can't always put that responsibility on yourself to bring it back, because these mofos need to want to see the change. And that's why I think St. Louis is so problematic, is because, you know, with all our redlining and shit, and just like all our like gayist ass policies from back in the day to today in Missouri, our hatred of women, you know, it's just like, there's only so much that you can bring that these people here will accept. And that is where I'm at right now mentally. And I know I need to get my ass out for my sanity, you know? Because yeah, I used to think I want to bring the culture back to the girls, but the girls aren't ready, you know?
But do you know who can help them get ready?
Who?
Aja.
I'm the realist. None of me fake. I set fire to the rain like a witch at the stake. Scared? Let me tell you a story. I don't need blood to get really.
Hey, girl.
Yes, Oshun.
I'm alive. I'm so sorry, y'all. I got this this time all fucked up. Oh, sorry. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. My stove is an hour behind. So I was looking at the stove and I'm like, yeah. So when Maxi had texted me, I was like, but we here.
Not the daylight saving stove.
Child, it's like the demonic stove. But you know what? I should put it an hour ahead so I'm early and not late.
Listen, we're doing this with Black people, so we're all prepared to be late for everything.
Wow.
I'm like to everything. So you came at the right time. We were just talking about, you know, how racism exists in St. Louis and how, you know, we go to like other cities to kind of like bring it back, but also like racism exists in New York, racism exists in LA. Can you kind of speak on like that facade that when you go to these big cities that racism disappears?
You know, it's crazy because I was looking at this map and it was like, these are the Black communities in the United States. And really there was only like a little L and then little dots in the other cities. But I feel like when there's cities that have more Black people and more people of color, there is room for more racism because, you know, people are actually intertwining their lives with Black lives. And, you know, it happens even in the most discreet forms. Gentrification, being a big one, because I grew up in Bed-Stuy. And when I was growing up, girl, the only white people in the neighborhood were like the teachers in the schools. And, you know, they didn't live in the neighborhoods. You know that they would be coming through from like, you know, Long Island and stuff to come in. The dog is under the bed. He's so concerned. But like when I was about 13, 14, you started seeing it happen. I saw people outside with their phones and I said, oh, they got to put their phone away. Like, what are they doing? Because I was used to like, if you was walking outside with the phone, child, you was going to get punched and they was going to take your phone or something like that. Like, it would just be like, you know, I grew up in the hood, but then it turned into this whole like kind of stripping the culture away. Mm-hmm. And it was bad. It, you know, it cleaned up the areas that were having a lot of violence, but at the same time, it forced a lot of elderly Black people to have to move out of their homes. It forced a lot of the cultural hotspots to have to close down because the rent was going crazy and bananas. And then, you know, all these young white artists from all over Nebraska, Ohio, wherever started moving in, and they were taking the jobs. It was crazy. But I think that here in New York, I've definitely experienced a lot of that racism firsthand and secondhand because, you know, granted, I feel like I have like light skin privilege, and there's people who would consider me too light skinned to be Black, and there's people who consider me too dark to be white. So those who consider me too dark, they'll give me the shit. But those who consider me light skinned, sometimes they will say things that are racist about my other friends or my other peers or colleagues, thinking that they're in a safe zone. And I feel like that's where people kind of get fucked up, is that they don't realize, because their perception of race is so tiny. And I have to speak up. I have to say, whoa, you can't say that. Mm-hmm. And in the city, it's always the microaggressive stuff. It's always like, oh my God, her nose is so big. Oh, her hair looked like this, or oh, how she got this, or woosah.
They're not microaggressions. Those are aggressions.
Yes,
those are aggressions. It's not micro to me to hear that. That's not micro to you to hear that. That's an aggression.
It is. And I've heard people flat out say, Black people are ugly. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm just like, one, how could you say that? Two, like, I'm just like, your definition of beauty must be very fierce, because I think that some of the most beautiful people in this world are Black. And if you really want to get technical, you know, we all root, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, all of our features somewhere or another root from indigenous Black features. So where do you get off, Ma? Like, sometimes you just have to be like, what is your point?
I had a question for you and Maxi, actually. This just like brought up something for me. When doing drag or in the drag community, do you feel those white beauty standards put onto you and projected onto you when performing, or even with your looks? Like, do you get hate mail from doing Drag Race, or, you know, what is y'all's experience with beauty standards and drag?
Well, I'm ugly, so, you know, it don't matter.
No, you're not. Stop it.
I don't get too much hate mail. The Dragula fans are different than the Drag Race fans. You know, it's like a smaller niche, so like we don't get too much hate mail.
Oh my God, I wish I was you.
But do you feel pressure from, like, do you feel the white beauty standards projected onto you, like, in your drag?
I mean, I'm a Black liberationist, so I'm out there like trying to like fight it. But I do wear wigs that are straightened sometimes. You know, like I'm complicit in it.
I feel like, I feel like for me personally, when I started coming out into the New York scene, there was a big pressure of kind of fitting this mold for the New York queens back then. Because when I first came out, it wasn't like you had all the little niches. It was just sort of like, you know, a lot of the drag scene was like Broadway rejects. It was people who tried to be on Broadway or wanted to be comedians, and then they couldn't do it. Which is just tea. And, you know, if you came out and you were a performer of color, you were expected Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, right. Like, you had to do that. And, you know, I went back and forth with that a little bit, because I was like, whoa, this is like not what I thought it was gonna be. And then there's the tropes, like the attitude thing. It was always being called sassy. You have an attitude. Oh, you're very and I'm like, what? And I feel like when I came to audition for Drag Race, I was like, yo, I gotta like not be like that, because then they're not gonna pick me. And I had this thought in my head. And when I auditioned and got on the show, I feel like I made one of the worst decisions in my career ever. And I feel like I whitewashed myself a lot for television. And I put on this like I was calling it like the Sally personality, like, oh my God, like, hi, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I knew that wasn't me, because I knew that I was very full of you know, AAVE and colloquialism. And like my life was always like rap music and really in the culture, especially to, you know, I grew up, I'm adopted, but my parents, my father is Caribbean. So I grew up also like speaking broken English, and my mom spoke Spanish. So it was like, I had a lot of culture. And I feel like when I got on Drag Race, I just went, and I don't know why I did it.
That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to do that in order to succeed. We're trained to whitewash ourselves in order to get, especially in media, that's what we're trained to do if we want to succeed.
Yeah, and then after I was done with TV and that portion of my life and I did Drag Race again, I was like, I'm done with this and I kind of want to go back to who I am. And, you know, I felt like I was being fraudulent. And when I did, I saw the shocking reactions from my fan base and from the Drag Race fans. And a lot of people were very much in denial. You're not Black. You can't be Black. It was, you know, why are you making rap music? Why are you doing this? And it was almost like there was a big portion of the fan base that had an issue with everything that came after that. And I thought it was really shitty, but at the same time, it opened up a space for me to find a lot of support in my Black fans, and especially in my queer Black fans, because I feel like the queer Black community is very underrepresented, and I feel like there's not a lot of big Black queer representation in the mainstream media, especially with there being so much of a how do you say, like a gender structure in the Black community where everything is supposed to be like the men have to be men and it's like the women have to be women, and you know, but it's harder for, I think, the breaking down of masculinity, because you know, the idea of being born this big powerful man, and you know, let's say you're like, no, I'm trans, I want to transition. That idea for some reason in the Black community is so looked down upon. And I think that it really sucks, because I feel like people love to play games, but at the end of the day, I think the community we should be looking after the most, who really needs the voices, is the Black trans community. Black trans women are also the not only are they, it's like sort of like at the bottom of this patriarchal thing, but they're also like being killed left and right. And you know, these are just small reasons, well, not small, they're big reasons why I was like, I can't do this little facade. I have to just be myself. And you know, I realized that a lot of things that I care about as a person, like my community, I realized that a lot of the people who got to know me through Drag Race and me kind of like judging myself or de-judging myself, they didn't give a shit about that. And that's when I really started to see it as problematic. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to sound ungrateful, but at the end of the day, I don't want to have a huge fan base if that fan base doesn't give two shits about my people, and if they don't, you know, care about the things I care about, you know, because to me, the Black community is important, the trans community is important, and so is the intersection. And as someone who's non-binary as well, I fall into that intersection. And, you know, that's why I really appreciated when all those fans who were there were like, yo, like, I had no idea that you were at this intersection too, and we should celebrate that.
It's important.
Yeah, we definitely should celebrate it. And it's, you know, you touched on one thing that's really, really important, the fact that like marginalized communities can perpetuate white supremacy, and how like it's so evident within the Black community, so evident within the Latinx community, and like every marginalized group perpetuates this so that we can assimilate, because we have one strike against us. And so I mean, there's some Black political theorists that say like, you know, being a Black woman is like a 2 strike, and like being like a Black trans woman is 3 strikes, and like looking at like how many strikes that we have against us, we're like, we don't want to strike anymore, you know. And so we're quick to put down people that, you know, are uneducated. We're quick to put people down that are, you know, gender non-conforming, because we're supposed to like just fit in.
It's hard. It's so hard. And you know, one of my things too is like it's another at this point macroaggression. It's the big thing of Black people in education. I hate it when you have people who don't live in Black communities and they love to talk about how uneducated Black people are. And I love to remind people that I hope you know that a lot of Black communities have been forced over time to become low-income communities. Yes, forced, because if you look at all the representation from the 60s, we had a lot of like wealthier, like higher middle class Black families, but with racism over time, a lot of people being denied jobs, a lot of people being kicked out of where they live, houses being burned down. You know, we're in this place now where we unfortunately have these ghettos, as they would call them, and unfortunately, the ghettos don't have the best education because there's teachers who don't want to work there. They're not paying them as much. And then, you know, you'll have mismatch funding where they don't want to fund the schools that are in these zip codes. But then you'll go to these white neighborhoods and they'll have these big programs and they'll have all of this funding, computers, everything is updated, but they have 3 Black kids. And then people want to talk about the education. And the one thing I hate the most is and this happens not just in the white communities, it happens in the Black community too. But you don't sound Black.
Oh girl, that's my favorite.
It to me, it's just like, what? I feel like unfortunately, like AAVE has become so synonymous with colloquialism, and I'm like, no, it's not the same. I feel like what people don't realize is when the education is not being funded and they're not giving a shit about it, you know, unfortunately it takes a little longer to learn something new, to process it, as to where you have these places where, of course, if you're in the suburbs and you have this great fancy school, you're gonna learn, skyrocket learn. I just have so many people that I grew up with who deal with that type of thing. Cause I was fortunate enough. I went to private school, but I went by lottery. Like, we got lucky. Like, we hit the lottery at that point. And I was like, okay, but even the change in there was so different. In public school, you know, we were fighting every day. We were just being bad. Like, we was just like, you know, the after school was even worse. At some point I was like, I can't go to after school. Like, it's just bad. And then when I went to private school, everything was so like, and we definitely had, we still had a lot more people of color. There were more Latinx people there, but child, like, the teaching was different. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was like, the teacher sat there and took time with every single kid. They did everything. But I learned later on that they were receiving charters. They were receiving money from, you know, from the government and from, you know, these wealthy Caucasian people. And I was like, bro, like, this is crazy. So I'm tired of hearing the "you don't sound Black" argument, or this whole, like, you know, oh, well, go to school thing. I'm tired of it.
Well, it's like, they set it up like this. They know exactly what they're doing. And having like these low income communities not be able to afford teachers or not value teachers enough. Therefore, like, schools in St. Louis in the city are closing down left and right. And it's so sad. You have like parents going to jail because they write a different zip code down on their students' registration forms, and they're going to jail for it. And this is like what our society has become. It's like modern day colonization.
I heard about that. That was like in the media. And yeah. I was like, how dare you really try to arrest someone because they're trying to
go to school?
You know, they're trying to give their child a better future. Like, this country has literally thrived on colonialism and just marginalizing people since the beginning. And, you know, and to think that, I mean, we go real deep, because especially with me, I'm involved in like a lot of like Afro religion. For me, it's like the root of all this too, like, stems from a Christian crusade. Like, it was really like these people from Spain.
It's racist.
It's like saying, hey, we're gonna go to America or wherever, and we're gonna just like enslave and kill everyone because God said so.
or because they're not Christian, or they're Muslim or Jew, you know.
You know, to me, it's just like, and I always feel bad too. I feel like everyone should have a freedom of religion. But I feel like I sort of sometimes find it cringy when I see like Black families heavily defending like homophobia, transphobia, and stuff like that, and using God as sort of like the weapon. And I'm like, sis, did you know that? It's like, did you know that the same weapon that you use to, you know, sort of scrutinize these groups of people was the same weapon that was used to force your ancestors into slavery?
That part. And it's like, we're told to like hate the religions of Africa. We're told to hate the religions of Black people, hate the indigenous religions, so that we can, you know, be Christian. And like, when we look at this, it's like, you know, religions like witchcraft and Santeria, like all of our Black ancestors were chopping up chicken heads trying to make sure these white men don't steal our babies. And then now, you know, even in the Black church, they're like, oh, don't do this, you know, you can't. And so how you were on a spiritual journey, Aja. It's been a year or 2 years, a few years. What's going on?
Yes. So I am a priest in the Lukumi faith. I like to call it Lukumi rather than Santeria, because Santeria has like a colonialism behind it, because it Santeria translates to like the way of the saints, and in Lukumi, you know, there's a big misconception because there's no saints in Lukumi. We have the Orishas. That's what we call our deities. And the idea of the saints came from the Atlantic slave trade, when all these people from West Africa were being brought to Cuba, Puerto Rico, Brazil. They were bringing their religion, and they, for the sake of their lives, were syncretizing their gods with the saints, the Catholic saints, in order to preserve the religion, which to me is terrible, but that's some badass shit. Like, that's like, it's like, sis, you think you got me, but we got you. And, you know, Lukumi itself came about because the religion survived, because they said, okay, now, and there's a book about it. I read a lot about this, and it's called Santeria Enthroned. And, you know, these people from Ifa, which is like the sister practice, they started divining for the white conquistadors, and they were making bets. They were like, okay, well, if I divine this and I tell you what's gonna happen, you gotta buy my freedom. And they were doing it. And that's how the people started becoming free in Cuba, was because all these like witches were like getting them free. And then, you know, then what happened was a lot of the white Cubans started to become interested. Sorry, my puppy is acting up. She looks like a little monster too, right? All the white Cubans were like, how do you do this? And they started becoming initiated into the Lukumi faith. Relax. And they started bringing it to America. They started bringing it to New York. And that's kind of how the community here started. But there was this guy, his name was Alfred Davis. His priest name was Omitoke, and he was a priest of Yemaya. He went to Cuba, and he was a gay Black man, and he got initiated, and he brought the secrets of Lukumi back to New York for the Black community. And he started to initiate other Black people in New York, and that's sort of how the community became here. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the religion is African. The gods are Black. You know, none of them are mulatto. None of them are mixed. They're Black. They have Afro hair and deep skin. And personally for me, so I'm a priest of Oshun. Oshun is like she's like the most popularized deity of our practice. You know, a lot of people are on the internet and they're like, Beyonce's Oshun, blah, 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 blah. You know, but I always tell people Oshun is no joke. You know, part of her ceremony too is that, you know, she eats castrated goats. Like, that's not really like, oh, beauty. Like, that's scary. And people think Oshun is like sex and, you know, femininity. Yeah, but Oshun is a warrior. Oshun is the smallest but the biggest. She's underestimated. And she's a big representation of a lot of the Black community. She, you know, the Black community always seems to be so belittled, but I feel like the Black community is one of the strongest and tightest communities. And, you know, I don't know. I'm very happy where I am in my practice. I grew up with, my mom was always a spiritualist, but I was babysat by this woman named, her name in our practice is Omi Lade, which means the crown of the ocean. And she was this Afro-Cuban Puerto Rican lady, and she was super, super, super stern and mean and bitchy, but she taught me everything that I know about life. Like, she always had this blue turban on, her face was snatched, she got her eyelids done in Dominican Republic, so, you know, she was always like, and she just taught me everything about life and religion and spirituality. And she always said, like, you know, she said, when you follow a faith like this, you know, people are going to always try to tell you, especially in your community, that you're alone. And she said, just remember that you're never alone, that there's a million other people out there like you. And you have ancestors that have fought for you to be here, and they're going to continue to fight so you stay here. And I think that itself gave me a lot of power, but it also made me want to not preach, because, girl, I'm nobody. I'm just a person. But it made me want to encourage other people of color to, you know, even if you don't want to be a witch or be like an Olarisha, you know, uplift your ancestral spirits, uplift your ancestors, let them help you lift up. They fought harder battles than we will ever have to fight. But, you know, our battles are still not to their difficulty level because they fought those battles. So, you know, one day we'll be ancestors to other people who will hopefully, you know, have it easier than we've had.
I just look at, like, you know, some days we get bitchy. We're like, man, this fucking sucks. This is a lot. I can't believe I have to go through this. And like, man, fuck it. Trump sucks. He's this white supremacist. And then I think about like my granny or her granny, you know, and just think about like, they didn't get to say that their leaders are white supremacists because no one gave a fuck. You know, like now it's like, yes, it sucks. We're still in the middle of like liberation. Liberation ain't here, but like we had some little wins. And so like our ancestors like had it so much worse than we could ever even imagine.
You know, and there's still people that will come out the woodworks today who just say the most ridiculous things. I remember I came across a cool post on Twitter, and it was just like women who were slaves who started revolutions. And it was just like this really cool post. But then like some dude commented under it and was like, you know, white is the superior race, you know. He was like, don't forget, we made your people our bitch, and you're still our bitch. And I was just like, whoa, you know, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul, I be thinking sometimes if you were to say that shit to me in person, I would just want to knock you out. But then I also try to think like that's what people expect you to do. But then I get torn because then I'm like, you know, I feel like you know, Martin Luther King always said resist. But then I think about all the revolutions, like the Haitian Revolution. I think about how sometimes, you know, shit does not solve by just sitting back and watching it happen and staying.
That's key. And that's why I we idolize Martin Luther King, but we don't idolize, or I guess in school, at least at my school, we weren't taught to idolize Malcolm X as much. But like for my family and for like my dad, who was like a military country Negro, like that was like who he like embodied. Like you cannot let these people get away with this shit, even though like they might expect you to do this. But yeah, you brought up the Haitian Revolution. They took that shit back, you know, it's really hard to take on these like identity roles that I think people project onto you. Like being a strong Black woman, that's like a very toxic role to, like, that's a very toxic title to carry. You know, like, we're taught to just like sit back because we don't want to be seen as an angry Black woman. But what is that? Who is that helping? That's helping these white people feel like more comfortable, and especially these white men, like people in the patriarchy, at the top of the patriarchy, feel more comfortable. But that's not serving us.
And that strong Black woman trope is like, can have like so many negative connotations when it comes to like healthcare. It's like, oh, you don't need to have any painkillers because you're a strong Black woman. Oh, you can endure this pain because you're a strong Black woman. And it really is like, when we think of strong Black woman, it's like often in context like being a slave. And that's like, yeah, Black women are the queens, but like they're only the queens because of what you made them endure. And like,
but they're not seen as people, and that's why they're still like equated to animals. And that's why still today I would be so scared. This is another reason why I'm telling myself I'm not going to get pregnant, because I will not go to a hospital because I do not feel safe there if I were to give birth.
I feel like the idea of strong Black women is honestly, in a lot of people's eyes, very synonymous with the idea of the mammy. It's supposed to be,
yeah, like, I take care of you. No, bitch.
Yeah. There's this weird maternal trope that has been given to Black women, and that has been a big byproduct of racism, where people are only willing to accept Black women when they're motherly. Like, who someone made a comment about it, which I know who it was. I don't want to give this person airtime, so I'm gonna not say who it was. But they said something about Lizzo, and they were like, people only like Lizzo because she portrays like the idea of like a very nice Black woman, like sort of like a mammy. And I was like, however, I don't agree with that statement. I do think that there is this thing where people look for those traits in often heavier Black women, when they're like, oh, I will accept you into society because you're one of the nice ones. You're nice, you're strong Black woman. And to me, that is ridiculous, because let me tell you something. I know a lot of people who are weak as hell, and I'm one of them. And I know a lot of people who can't deal with the pressure. I know a lot of people who are strong, but I feel like, why do you have to be quiet to be acceptable? Because in a way, when you're a strong Black woman, and the trope part of that is saying that you don't have to say nothing.
Yeah, you're not challenging the people in power so they can continue to abuse.
And to me, that's just like, you know, then if you say something, that's where the angry Black woman trope goes in.
Exactly.
You know, of course we're fucking angry. Like, it's just like, you know, my thing is, at first I've heard people be like, well, I'm not angry. No, bitch, I am angry. A lot of people are angry. My ancestors.
And that's okay. You're expected to. It's okay.
And like coax it, like, you know, we're supposed to be like that silent, like, you know, Martin Luther King, be like, oh, why can't you?
Oh, honey.
He just sat down and like, he just let us burn his whole house down. You know, he didn't do anything back. And like, that's the way you should be.
Well, if somebody were really to say that, I'd be like, and the way you should be is to mind your fucking business. But
right.
I don't do well with people like that, especially like, girl, that's why I try my best not to argue with people on Twitter, because people just be ridiculous. And every time Aja says something about a white person, it's, why do you hate white people so much? What did they do to you? And it's just like, child, this is not about you. Like, this is about hundreds and maybe thousands of years of inequality. Like, is it really that wrong that we're just fighting for equity? Like, is it
they
really?
Would love to make it about that.
I think.
And my mom, I will tell you, like, being raised, like, my mother is white, but she's Sicilian, like, culturally. So, but my mom just started getting it together this year, like, because she used to say that same thing, like, you're half white, like, why do you hate white people so much? Like, you know, but literally it was like this year or a couple of years ago, it's all a blur, but she started to get it together, because I think like they see outside of themselves. Like, once you stop making it about you, and once you like start gaining more empathy for the other and the marginalized, that's when you're going to actually like empathize and like understand and how you can help like other people.
No, yeah. And with me, I'm adopted. My mom's Puerto Rican and my dad is Afro-Trinidadian. But my birth parents, my mom is Puerto Rican and Welsh, and my father's Nigerian. And so I'm adopted, and growing up, my adopted grandmother didn't like me. And she didn't like me because I was half Black. Yeah, and she used to call me the N-word. She used to say like I don't want him here. He can't be around the other kids in the family. I was never invited to the birthday parties. I was never like, if I went to her house, you know, it was a problem. And my mom, you know, who, you know, I feel like I'm grateful to have like a woman who really sat there and fought for me and say, you know, no, we're not playing this game. But, you know, it was crazy because I had a conversation with my brother, and he called me a few months ago, and we were just talking about all the old shit, you know, pandemic blues. And he was just like, you know, it's the anniversary of grandma's death is coming up. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't think she really liked me. And he was like, yeah, she didn't like you because you were Black. And like, you know, and she was Puerto Rican, but I think that people don't realize even in the Latin communities where all these cultures are really actually integrated together in such small spaces, it gets really crazy. And going back to the Haitian Revolution, that racism lived on still until this day, still lives there, because, you know, back when Haiti and Dominican Republic were, you know, the good old Hispaniola, the reason why that separation came about was because they started moving all the people with darker skin and darker features to one side of the island, and they considered the people who had the French and Spanish features to be elite. So they started to create Dominican Republic, and then the Haiti. Is it the Haiti Republic, or is it just, it's the Republic of Haiti? It's something, Haiti. They started to make that. And, you know, it's crazy because growing up in New York, I have a lot of Dominican friends, and there were a lot who would be like, you know, they would be dark as hell. I'm not Black. I'm Dominican.
Your ass is Black. You a Negro.
Girl, little twisties and everything. Just, I'm not Black. And I'm like,
you a nigga.
I'm just like, sis, can you please point to where you are a Caucasian person? And then they'll be, but it's Dominican, it's different. I'm like, no,
girl, bye.
You know, people don't understand that ethnicity and race are not the same. You know, and people don't understand too that in a newer world, race is not adjacent to skin color either anymore, because a lot of people are mixed.
Right. That's why I love Amara La Negra. Like, I think she is doing an excellent job of bringing like Afro Latinos to the forefront in society and media, you know, and she's like, you know, even educating like Black Americans. It's like when she went on the Breakfast Club and like Charlemagne was acting so ignorant, you know, she got him all the way together. But even even white Latinos, it's like still like a struggle. Like, while I am not Latina, like I see it with my own friends being dark-skinned from Panama, and then them still talking about some damn I ain't Black. It's like, girl,
I just be like,
what's your foundation number?
You ain't fooling nobody.
Okay, sis.
And it's just like so unfortunate how like white passing people that are like of African descent or any other marginalized community are white complicit in white supremacy. Like, if you look at like Trump's support, it grew with Black and Latinx voters because
white Cubans, girl.
Right. It's like they're like, oh, well, we're not like that. Oh, we want to be subservient to the master so that we can have a place at his table, and we're going to separate ourselves from those that don't want it. And it's, you know, we're seeing it, and we can't do anything about it, or can we?
This election brought out a lot of coons. It brought out a lot of, child, let me tell you something. There was this girl who was a self-proclaimed millionaire, and she's like a friend of a friend. and knowing damn well that all her friends are gay and black. And she was like, oh, well, I'm pro-Trump because of taxes. And I was like, sis, you're not a real millionaire. Your taxes ain't going nowhere. Like, you know, that and so many people who are real millionaires were still voting for Biden, who, again, you know, as I like to say, is just the worst of two problems. No, the better of two problems. You know, there we go. Because they were both terrible in my opinion. I mean,
Terrible.
Yeah.
but we was just doing what we had to do to get a move on, because Trump was not only, he was just toxic, 360 toxic, just bitch, more toxic than Britney Spears.
Oh,
Bad.
not Britney.
Girl, all the
Britney
Cobras were shaking. They were just like, ooh, because that's how bad she was for the government and for everything. And even now, like, he's trying so hard to like push his little done.
But like back to like the white Cubans and like the Latinos and like the Coons, like Herman Coon, Ben Coonson, Coonus Owens, like all these girls who are like all the girls who are like, because they think if they are backing Trump, that aligns them closer to whiteness, you know, because they have so much internal conflict and like internal hatred and racism towards Black people and themselves and other Latinos, that if I back this white ass burnt barbecue chip, then I will be closer to power, to having power, to being accepted by white people. It's like really fucking sad.
Did you see that one gay boy? He's this Black gay boy. He was advocating for Trump like real hard. I think Bob the drag queen like did an interview with him. I forgot his name. I had a whole Twitter fight with him, and I was just like,
No.
girl, I literally was just like, coon definition : his video, and he responded, and he was like, hey sis, I'm not trying to be claimed by you and your people anyway. Da 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 da. And I said, sis, you will never be white. That was it. I just
That's
said,
what he wants.
it's just like, you know, and his whole page is, why are people so mad at white people? Why? And
That's sad.
but the worst one was where he was like, "Why, I don't understand why Black people have to be so self-oppressive." And I was like, girl, did you hit your hand?
Who raped him?
Girl,
I want to see the family photos. Probably tacky.
child, it was bad. But
I've been there, you know, like I being like a Black punk kid, you know, like
Yeah.
you want to fit in that crowd. If you're the only Black kid, you don't want to be like those other Black kids. You want to separate yourself so that you can be accepted. And like,
Yeah.
it took Ferguson for me to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't distance myself from these Black people. Maybe I shouldn't like reiterate like classism and be like, oh, you're ghetto and I'm better than you because I'm this bougie bitch that like went to college and like my mom's white, and that's why like I am the you know, people say like, oh, you're cute for a Black person, you know, and I let that slide. I let that be like, oh, okay.
We were taught to, you know.
And so I feel for that boy, you know, like he has drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's because no one has educated those white people around him. And he's that Black person that is validating them.
Yeah.
So he can exist, because all anybody wants is to feel loved and accepted, and he probably doesn't have any hood friends.
That's true. I feel like, you know, back to what we were saying, what I said earlier about that map I saw, you know, when you really think about all the Black communities in America, like it's still a big minority, considering that the middle America is mostly land. You know, there's a lot of communities that don't have a Black person, or they have like one Black kid at the school, or, you know, and so because of that, a lot of these white folk aren't really taught, you know, the difference between a white person and a Black person's life. Some people are just taught that, like, you know, things are normal, and that, you know, racism is normal. All of this is normal.
Or they think it's over because 1865 happened.
Or Martin Luther King died for the Black people.
Yeah.
Child, when people say things like racism is over, I just kind of like, I kind of want to pick their brain and be like, so you've never seen or heard or said anything remotely racist? Because I feel like everybody, especially white folk, have at least at one point in their life said something out loud, not just thought it, that has been very racist, and maybe they didn't realize it
multiple times. I mean, like, that's like the society, like, where they're comfortable. It's like my white siblings have said multiple things that were like very hurtful to me and like my father, but it's funny, I have a black sister, it's okay to say, you know, like, I feel like it's just who these people are around and they feel like it's okay.
I think there's this facade that just because you don't personally hate Black people, that being derogatory towards Black culture or Black features isn't replicating like the fact that you hate Black people. Like, if you say Black people are ugly, you're saying that every Black person is ugly. If you're saying I'm not attracted to Black people, you're saying every Black person in the world is ugly.
That's why I hate when people say like preferences and shit. Like, this is like so, like, this is so problematic. And I see that on TikTok too. I'm like, with like these douchebags who are like, you know, it's like the white girl emoji and then like the Black girl emoji. And like literally 90% of the guys, like 5 out of 6 are going to the white girl. And you see all these like Black girls commenting like, what would your mother say about this? And they're like, it's just a preference. I mean, that don't mean I hate Black women. It's just a preference. I'm like, that 100% is something inside of you that's telling you that Black is ugly.
For me personally, I like, in my encounters with white men, I feel like, because I feel like I have dated people from all different races, and I dated a white dude and I dated a white Mexican dude, and both of those times, the one issue I felt like I had was that they didn't understand certain conversations. Like, certain conversations meant different things to them. And we would get into arguments because, you know, if someone said something racist to me or said something really off, or like, you know, we was in an airport and suddenly I got to get triple checked, quadruple checked for no reason, you know, it was like, if I got mad, it's like, why are you so mad? Like, what, you know, what?
You're not allowed to be.
And one of them once told me, you know, one of them said, I feel like you talk all this shit about oppression, but you're the only person I see oppressing yourself. And I feel like the problem I've ran into with dating white men for me personally is that sometimes people don't relate to your life story or your experience. So, you know, you can tell them again and again and again and again, but until they go through it, people don't care or they won't listen. And that's a big problem with what was going on this whole year, like with the Black Lives Matter movement, child, getting hijacked by this fucking looting bullshit. Because you try to tell a white person that it was not predominantly Black folk looting, and they want to have a whole argument. But in every video you see of the looting, there's fucking Carl and Ann,
Aaron,
right, going off in the store, like, and I'm just like, you know, I'm not saying Black people didn't loot, but I'm saying that like people are blaming the Black people and the Black Lives Matter movement for the looting and the destruction of places. And to me, that was just like, really? Like, we got video proof. But then again, these are the same people that, you know, were saying like, oh my God, Trump would never say this or that, the other. Like, there was videos of this guy interviewing these women in Florida, of course. And, you know, he's like, you know, Trump said this, that, and the other about women. And they're like, oh, no, he didn't. But it's on video. No, that's fake.
It's
run the tape.
We're so like stuck in these like insular self-replicating like echo chambers that if something takes away from how we view the world, we don't want to hear it, you know? And it's like every community does, and even like liberals and like inner cities, we're like, oh, those country folk, we're so much better than them because our schools are better and we don't talk like this. And it's really like we have these like, it's tribalism to a fact. And we can't, how do we do that? And also like, how does your guys' music and art like reflect like these thoughts that you have about the world, and how do you think that your music helps perpetuate like liberation to, you know, your listeners, because you are like theorists but also like artists as well.
I feel like for me, before I felt I had to write about, I used to think that my experiences were too real to write about, and that people might not listen to it because they couldn't relate. But on my first studio album, I have a song called Anarchy, where I kind of talk about how I'm proud of all my roots, and I tell, like, you know, my life story. I talk about being followed in stores, being watched on the cameras. Like, I talk about all that stuff. And, you know, it did get the least amount of attention on the album, but everyone who listened to it, like, really did reach out to me and say, look, like, I really think that you should talk more about your experience. So I'm working on my second studio LP right now. It's almost 2 years in the making, and it's completely inspired by the Orisha. I had last summer, I had not this summer, but like 19 summer, I had people from my practice come in, and they played the drums, they played little cowbells and like the shekarays, and they sung what we call oro, which is just like a song collection of songs to my crown of Oshun. And we sent all the little songs to different producers, and they turned them into beats. So I'm really excited because I also like have a lot of artists on my project who are Orisha initiates as well. I have this she's this jazz singer from Brooklyn. Her name is Emma Watt, and she's a priestess of Shango. And then I also got this girl group. I really love them. Their name is Oshun on one of my tracks. So I really wanted to do this one for like the culture. Like, you know, I really wanted it to be a testament to my experiences as a queer, Black, Latin, just trying to live person.
Yeah, I completely relate to that as well. Like showcasing my identity and, you know, the intersections, because like a lot of people aren't exposed to a non-Black American person, if that makes sense, outside of Africa. So like Afro-Latinos, especially like where me and Maxi live in St. Louis. But yeah, like with my upcoming project, I have like, you know, roots from like Latin jazz and from South America, like folk songs. And then also I really love that I was introduced to Sicilian folk music when I was little, because women are at the forefront of it. So I often hear in America, like, oh, you're a female bassist. Oh, you're a female musician. Like, which is like so like degrading. But so yeah, I'm really excited for like this next project, because it really is focused on womanhood and what that means to me, being a Black woman and being a woman who speaks different languages and who travels the world, and, you know, just honoring the Black women from my family and then the Sicilian women in my family, and just marrying the two. So yeah, I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for your album, Aja. Oh my
Thank
God.
you. That's beautiful. I love that. You know, I think it's really cool when you can just like grab from your culture and like put it into something, because it, you know, we're like you said earlier, sometimes we're not taught to embrace the cultures we come from, because there's sort of this like, I guess I'm gonna call it like neo-American culture, where it's just like pop culture. You just follow what's popular, but there's something timeless about embracing your roots and where you come from. And I don't know, I think that it's fucking bomb. I hope that like you let me know when it comes through, so that way I can buy it. I want to buy it. I hope people know that they should be buying our music and not just streaming it. We make more money when you buy it, so support us.
Literally.
I'm get them to listen to mine. I'm at the bus stop. Hey, my CD. Listen to my CD.
Yes.
Honestly, I'm just excited for this new year to come. I feel like this year has been very full of tribulations, concerning health, social, social politics, and just, it was a very the presidential election. Like, even though I was not really like, oh my god, like gagging over Miss Biden, I was like in the bathtub for like 3 hours on election night, just refresh. I was like, I don't even think we're gonna find out tonight, but I was stressed. I don't know. Girl, if Miss Trump won, I was gonna stay home for like 4 years.
We did it, Joe. We did it.
Oh my god. Now I feel like I really hope Michelle Obama does another one of those videos like the one she made for Beyonce, where she's like, hey girl, you did. I love that video.
Could you imagine Melania trying it? Melanie. I hate God. Oh, I hate the Christmas.
It's so great that they're out, and I'm just like kind of weary about what's gonna go on next, and like really hopeful that people really get engaged, and like, because I know a lot of people, they were fighting back for Trump, and a lot of people are gonna go to sleep when Biden gets in, and like it's like he's still like putting into office people that are profiting from war, racists doing the transportation department. It's like, wait a minute, wake up, don't just go back to your room.
No, yeah, I heard a lot of people like openly say, which I was like, I wouldn't say that if I were you. And I was just thinking, what? Because people were saying things like, oh, I didn't vote last time, but then Trump won and I felt like I had to vote. It's like, sis, you should have voted last time. If you would have voted, maybe we wouldn't have gotten into this situation. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I think it's important to vote. Always vote. Like, whether or not you feel like your voice is heard or not, because some people make that excuse, just vote. It's just so important because, we're barely even a democracy at this point, if we're being real. But, child, vote. Because if you don't, we could end up in a Trump situation. I feel like we haven't, in our lifetimes at least, we haven't had such a shitty leader for our country that was like, we had a few, but like they weren't as bad. She was bad.
Girl, evil. I mean, pretty much all of them were pretty bad. They all like,
Yeah.
Obama was like, not the worst, but still pretty bad.
Yeah, she was bad, but I mean, Donald Foundation is just
orange.
Girl, there's no contour. It's just the eyes. Girl, what would Bruce say?
Child, she put the bar so low that we would have been excited for anybody but her to be in the chair next. We was like, you know what? Because not anybody.
I hate that I lived for Melanie's outfits, though. I will say that. I hate
Joe Biden age. Dr. Joe Biden is not gonna have cute outfits. She's got Kohl's. She's got some. She needs a stylist.
She got the Macy's pencil skirt with a little blazer.
She has it. But one thing that really that we need to advocate is that we can't just vote every 4 years. We can't just vote every 2 years. There's elections. There's several elections every
local elections. Yeah.
Every
Senate.
Senate. Yeah.
Your city council person, your alder person. Your trash collector, you want to make sure that every single seat that is filled is someone that's going to fight for us. Because if it weren't, AOC didn't run during a presidential election.
Right.
She ran during the midterms.
Right.
And if no one voted for her, what will we have? We wouldn't have that in office. And so it's really important for us to get out there and vote.
I think it's really terrible how people, especially from the Republican Party, love to downplay things that AOC does. And I feel like, they love to just be like, oh, you're just a liberal, you're a crazy liberalist. And it's just like, sis, no, this is someone who actually gives enough of a shit about other people to you know, to continue the conversation. Because if anything, at least we have the conversation going. And I love that she's always fact checking.
Yeah, but and also she's like a person who literally like 3 or 4 years ago was working in restaurants, who has been on the ground, has lived a realistic life, whereas these like fucking like founding father looking asses, you know, are, what have you done? Lived off of daddy's visa, you know what I mean? It's like, so she's for the people, you feel me? Like she's out here.
And it's crazy how they try to like downplay her by, you know how many times I've seen this shit on Twitter of like some just like white man like, oh, shut up, bitch, like you used to work at a bar. Like it's like, what?
Yes, I did, and that's hard work.
It's like a regular person working at a bar. Like, is that shocking that someone, to me, it's just like privilege.
And like it's hard not to be hopeful when you have people like AOC or, you know, Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or Cori Bush, who just got elected to St. Louis, who Tonina and I both have worked with many times. And it's like, you know, we have people in there that are like about to shake it up, but it's still like, we got these Nancy Pelosi's out there that are like, well, I just don't think that we're ready for change yet. My donors.
Girl, if you don't pass that damn stimulus bill and give me my motherfucking check, I'm out of work, bitch.
Yo, that's to me like the fact that they won't give people the money to, first of all, okay, they want to complain about how the economy is just going, my love, that's what the stimulus is for, to stimulate the economy. But y'all over here giving, you know, $1 million grants to people who are just wasting it on a Tesla. But there's like small companies, artists, and all these people who are literally struggling. This is what's so backwards. Mind you, if you look at like Canada, who again, maybe they're not in the best place either, but their stimulus was con. I was like, oh, like, you know, y'all at least are getting some sort of real financial care. Like during this time, a lot, like, I don't know about y'all, but like a lot of like me and a lot of artists that I know, actually every artist I know has been like, it's just been like a long girl, like just, we don't know what's next. There's so much uncertainty in the air for performers and people who make art, because to be real, the digital shit is cute to an extent, but it's depressing.
It's not a reflection of your actual art.
Like, let's just 1 second. Let's just talk about that digital draft. It was great. I'm glad we did it. But like, when I was producing shows, I had to spend like a couple $100s to pay people out of my own money when I didn't make any. Because I was like, wait a minute, it's not bringing in the coin. It's not bringing in nothing anymore. And like, they want all of us to spend 6 days shooting these videos, creating new looks, recreate, like,
for free.
You know, for $40.
For free, right.
Ciao. And there's something too about like, you know, I feel like stage performers, like we have to sort of like feed off of a crowd's energy. When you're just performing for a camera or in front of a camera, sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel crazy. Like I feel like, what am I doing? Because you know, you don't have that energy. And I don't know, I can't wait for 2021 to hopefully be the year that people get their shit together, wear a mask, vaccinate, do whatever they gotta do, and just, I want to be on stage. I want to be talking to people. Like, you know, me and my partner have just been like, just going crazy at home, you know, doing nothing.
Yeah. We'll manifest it.
I don't think that people are gonna wear masks. I just don't think it's gonna work. I mean, like, that was what should be done. That is what society said that we need to be doing, but they're just not gonna do it. I went to Texas and I wore this mask everywhere, the surgical mask, and then I put another mask on top of it. And nobody was wearing nothing. You
see the Gucci Mane concert?
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was this like fat, like had to be like over 1,000 people seating theater. in Houston literally 2 nights ago, and it was packed. It was litty titty. Like, he's just like, it's a whole different day. It's just like T.I.'s listening party, and it makes me so sad because like we are the communities that are suffering the most, and we have the most fucking frontline workers, whether that's fast food, whether that's in healthcare, whether that's in like, you know, medics. Like, this is really scary, and to see like the majority like Black people running this shit. Like, T.I., what the fuck are you doing? Gucci, what the fuck are you doing? There's no excuse.
What was they listening to? T.I. hasn't came out with music in like 12 years. Like, I was like, sis, what are they listening to?
Girl, and Tiny was right next to his ass too, just taking pictures. Like, it was just a different day. It's really fucking sad.
You know, and then the private celebrity parties too, like,
it's not okay. Like, this is so insensitive, and like fucking Cardi, and like, I love all these people, but like, I love them less because they're just the insensitivity and then the carelessness and disrespect to all the people who are out here dropping like flies. It's so off-putting and upsetting.
I had to secure my rent for next month, so I did a show in Houston, and I felt bad about it. But I didn't take off my mask. I was like, "You want me to lip sync? Well, that's not happening. I'm not gonna be
right." Yeah,
putting my mask.
But that's how you do it responsibly, though. Like,
but
you know, not like crowd surfing.
They were over here getting jumped.
Right. I'm just like, stop killing Black people.
Black on Black crime.
Ooh, we didn't talk about that.
You know, on one hand, like, I feel like there is a thing, like, I would never want to shame an artist for like really just having to make a living, because we really are in such a dark time. But I wish that the people who would go see these artists would be on their best behavior, and the truth is they're not. You know, in New York, they've been having like little drag shows and shit, and like, you know, a lot of times the drag queens get drunk and then they just take off their masks and take off everything, and then like, you know, they're also kikiing backstage, all like all over each other.
You talking about $3 bill?
Yeah, and
they wear masks at all on stage. No masks on stage.
You know, but then it's like the crowd is the scarier part, because I feel like, you know, the queens got to do their own thing, but it's like the crowd is the one that scares me, because then it's just all these people and they're taking their masks off. And my thing is, like, if you're gonna go have a drink, anytime that I've eaten out, I have my mask on, I would pull it down, back up, like, you know, get your, you know, keep yourself together. People will literally just take off their mask at the table and they're like, ah! You know, it sucks, because it's just like, what about the performers who are just trying to make a living? What about the people in table 2 over there? Like, you know.
And it's one thing for like smaller artists who aren't like Gucci or T.I. Like, these artists don't need to do that. No. Like, Gucci and T.I., you don't need to do that. You should have managed your money better so you weren't in a position to perform. But like other artists like us, like, we need to be performing. Like, we are the ones who need to be touring to get to pay for our living. But Gucci and T.I., you really don't need to do that. You don't.
No, yeah, that's why I was like, you know, even at $3 bill, like, I don't blame the queens. I don't blame the performers. I blame the people who go to see them who don't, you know, don't follow safety precautions. And that's why in New York, we just closed down bars again, and they just closed down indoor dining. So it's just like, you know, shit. I made sure I went to BBQ's the other day and got me some Texas sized drinks. I was like, girl, we gonna have no indoor dining. I'm gonna get me a little
on period.
Which I got very fucked up, and I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Good for you.
Yeah, like, I feel like once we get back to this, how are we gonna be? Like, how are we gonna interact with people? Like, once we haven't been around so many people, like,
I already hate touching people as it is, unless, like, I hate touching. My fans used to touch my hair when I was in Europe. My fans just coming up to me, touching my hair. It's like, blah, 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 blah. But now I'm happy, like, but now I'm like happy they're like another thing, like, I can like blame like not touching people on, just like being like, coronavirus was like yesterday, bitch. We're not touching like at all. I love you all. Thank you so much. A sweet bow and this and like a sweet autograph, but I'm not hugging people any the fuck more. I'm not shaking hands, no, especially with white people.
No, child. This is why when we used to do when I would tour meet and greets, girl, I would always bring a big ass bottle of Purell, and I'm scared of getting sick. And this was even pre-COVID. I'll be like, girl, pump, and bam, because I'm not. All right, because I'm not dealing with that. I don't want to get sick because you decided to, I don't know, wipe your ass and not clean your hands because you decided to touch everything, touch your face. Like
straight white men don't have hygiene. They don't have good hygiene and they don't wash their hands after
or
they
their asshole.
Their wiener. Or their anus.
They do not wash their assholes.
This has been a PSA. Take a motherfucking shower.
Bitch, and spread your ass cheeks, bitch.
Oh my God, stop. You're reminding me of those videos of like, I was like, do you put the soap in between the cheeks? I need to know.
Because I will not sleep with you unless on periods.
I wouldn't even talk to you.
Well, I think that's all the time that we have today because I got to edit all this shit. And we got so much. You guys have anything that you want people to look out for? Any projects coming up? Any OnlyFans or ways for people to give you money during this time?
I'll just shout out my Cash App. My Cash App is at I am Tonina. And you can just like follow me on the gram at I am Tonina and buy music and merch from the artists that you like and support your favorite artists that way.
Yes. So you can find me on my social medias, Aja the Queen on Instagram. I'm trying to change it, but child, Instagram is impossible for anything.
Yeah.
Twitter, my Twitter and my OnlyFans are under the same name. It's just Aja Oshum, AJAOXUM. And then you can find my music under Aja, like, you know, pay for it, buy it. Or stream it on Spotify and I'll accept my 0.00015 cents.
We get more money off Tidal. Like if people stream it off Tidal, it makes more money for us. I think it's like less zeros than after the point. It's still not a lot, but yeah. Well, I appreciate both of you for coming. This is amazing. I can't wait for y'all to collab on some music sometime in here.
Yes.
You haven't heard Tonina? She sings like if Adele were black and not Adele.
I sing like Adele's Bantu Knots.
Right. If Adele's Bantu Knots has soul, that would be Tonina.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I can't. I was about to be like, Adele's not black.
No.
She's a Jamaican queen.
That picture kills me.
She looks uncomfortable too.
Crazy people. Well, thank you, Maxi. Aja, was so nice to meet you.
Thank y'all as well. Be safe. Don't talk to strangers unless they got money.
Yes.